Hello and welcome to the Google News Initiative's Asia Pacific Youth Verification Challenge for 2022. We're so happy to have you with us tonight for the second instalment of our Meet the Legends series. My name is Holly Knott and I'm here on behalf of Australian Associated Press, Australia's independent and objective newswire service, and the hosts of all the Australian and New Zealand elements of this challenge. Before we get started tonight, I would like to pay my respects to the Wadi Wadi people of the Darawal Nation, which is where I live and work, and extend my respects to the traditional custodians of all the lands represented in this call tonight. I thank the elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend my respects to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be on this call tonight. So let me introduce to you tonight's speaker, Miguel D'Souza, who may be familiar to some of you who, if you've done this challenge before. Miguel is a journalist, consultant, and trainer, and he was the Google News Teaching Fellow for 2 years from 2020. Miguel's career in online news spans more than 2 decades, and we've been colleagues at AAP previously, but he's also worked at SBS, 7 News, news.com.au, and he had about a decade in community radio. He now works as a university tutor, designs training curricula, and advises newsrooms. I know you are going to get a lot from his session. So without further ado, over to you, Miguel.
And thank you very much for the intro. I'm really excited to be here. Welcome to all of you who've chosen to take the 2022 Google News Initiative Verification Challenge. Look, this is going to be a fun challenge where you will learn new skills, then put them to use solving the sorts of puzzles that real journalists, like our expert presenters, tackle every day at places like AFP, AAP, and RMIT's Fact Check, as you'll find out. 3 years ago, I came up with the idea of the verification challenge. It started during the COVID lockdown as a fast and sort of fun way for journalists to learn how to verify the huge torrent of misinformation that was spread during COVID. It's now keeping students right across Asia, the Pacific, and now Australia engaged. I'm really happy it's here. With that in mind, you should pay attention to every word I'm going to tell you. There could be clues coming out on top of the challenge anywhere, so pay attention. Now, here are some ground rules. Well, they're not really ground rules. They're just a few things that might help you over the next 20 minutes or so. Take note of the banners. You'll see them here. Search for or write down the URLs. We'll leave them on screen for lots of time for you to notice. Now, I'd really love it if you test these tools out immediately. Test them out on me. I'll prompt you with a few questions. Use the chat to ask questions. Either I or our other experts will answer them. And don't worry, if you miss anything, you can always watch this all over again later. And of course, if you can use the live chat to ask about something that you've missed. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with a few human skills. And what I need to do is, of course, just share my screen with you so that I can show you exactly what we are going to be doing. So just give me 1 second while I get all of that ready. So here we are. Look, I want to start off with the whole topic of digital verification. Now, this is a little chart that you'll find at the First Draft News website. And we'll put that URL up on screen in a sec. Now, with digital verification, it's really important to understand what you're going to encounter. Journalists, more than ever, need to be prepared to differentiate between what is and what isn't false online. Now, it really helps to be aware of the types of misinformation that you'll encounter. Look, some of these are pretty straightforward. I think we all understand satire, a parody, misleading content is the use of information which might misrepresent an individual or an issue. We see that often. Imposter content is when genuine sources or people are impersonated, spoofed, hoaxed, falsed. Fabricated content is, well, that's just what it is. Everything is completely untrue right out of the box and all the way back in as well. False connection is where we start to get to some of the more subtle and sophisticated methods of misinformation that you might see. These are when headlines or text captioning a piece of content don't actually accurately depict the content at all. False context, is another example. The content's real, but the captions, headlines, or other contextual information is false. Think in terms of every time we get a rainstorm and you see pictures of the same deluge or something like that that's false context. And finally, we have manipulated content. That's when genuine pictures, video, or even audio are digitally manipulated to deceive. And by the way, make a note of all of these because there is a challenge question coming up about these. Now, here's another little bit of human intelligence info that you need to be good at your verification. Keep these questions in mind when you're investigating content. Now, think about whether an account's verified. Does somebody exist on other platforms? Or simply, has that account apparently been set up simply for the one purpose? How old is the profile? Often that means they're returning from a ban for bad behavior, or they've been set up just for one purpose. How many friends or followers do they have? Are there connections between those friends or followers? And have they ever posted anything other than misinfo? Sometimes you'll find an account meets one of the other conditions. That is, it's been around a while, but it may have only just been tweeting the one type of topic. And finally, do they have an original profile photo? Now, these are all questions which I'm going to give you tools which will help you probe and understand, and hopefully give you an idea that something might be suspicious or worthy of more questioning. Now, I have a challenge question for you. I really hope you are paying attention to this slide here, because I'd like you to name one of the 7 types of misinformation or disinformation. Again, I'm going to ask you that question again. It relates to these slides. I would like you to name one of the 7 types of misinformation or disinformation. Okay? So you can go to the chat and enter your answer. And while you're doing that, I'm going to start to talk about tools to help you organize your investigation. Now, verification sometimes involves accumulating all sorts of material for an investigation, and a tool like Google Keep comes in very handy here. Google Keep is a Chrome extension and a web page. It stores all of your links, your social media posts, but also things like pics and quotes. Just highlight these and hit the Keep extension. Citable is similar but different. Citable is kind of like we'll save all of your stuff to a spreadsheet, and look, it's a really just as useful as Keep, but some people prefer working on spreadsheets. And look, as you saw when the little banner flashed up on screen, just search for Citable Chrome extension. We'll try and keep those banners on screen a little bit longer. Now, this is account analysis. I'll put the URL up on screen in a second, but you can see it there. There it is. And look, Twitter's a key conduit for the spread of misinformation. And this is really important. And account analysis is a crucial first stop tool to probe it. Now, all you do is enter an account name. And look, here's a suggestion. Try it out on my Twitter handle. Obviously, that means you need to find my Twitter handle, enter it in there, and ask yourself if you can challenge to find out, do I retweet a lot? Find out when, for instance, I might have tweeted the most, that sort of thing. So give it a try. Or, of course, you can always try it on yourself. Look, here's another really useful tool. Botometer detects accounts which are extremely bot-like. It has its own metric, which will tell you when an account, for instance, may well be matching some of the characteristics of a bot. Look, these are the results you're looking at for when I trained it on the followers of the Twitter account sharing propaganda content. Botometer categorizes accounts based on how recently they've been set up, content they post, and other important metrics to help detect an account's authenticity. Related to the Botometer is Hoaxy. Now, Hoaxy is useful because it will let you test claims, because sometimes what you get is a claim. It's not a picture or a video. It's actually just a statement somebody makes, or perhaps a hashtag that's trending out of proportion to what you think it should be. Well, Hoaxy lets you test these claims. It allows you to basically feed in an article or a hashtag. Look, let me show you what it looks like when it works. Here's an example of a tweet recently shared by somebody from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and it will actually show you how that tweet is necessarily. So it's something that's worthy of suspicion. Another excellent tool for harvesting good information about a Twitter account is TinfoLeak. It's free. like all of the tools we're showing you, and it delivers you a comprehensive report on an account, and it's free to use. So we're going to move on to some tools now which will help you analyze video. So let's just have a look first at a fairly simple tool. Look, this works for YouTube and Vimeo. I won't stay on it for too long. Watch Frame by Frame does exactly what it says on the box. And remember, again, with all of these tools, don't worry if you don't get a chance to write down the URL or anything like that. You can go back and watch this video again, and you'll be able to grab it from there. But you can see it right there on screen. Pop a YouTube or a Vimeo video in, and you can watch it frame by frame. Look, most videos from social media sites are much easier to watch if you download them. Now, you're looking at one of two tools. You can see a URL there on screen, savevideo.net, and on the slide over there, you can see savefrom.net. Now, they both do the same thing. The reason why I've shared them with you, both with you, is because if one doesn't work, try the other. And that's an idea I really need to introduce you to. Always be flexible in your thinking when it comes to verification. Don't just give up because one tool doesn't work. Remember, this is the internet and people make lots and lots and lots of tools. So we've got two URLs displaying on screen there for you. So make a note of those because they will be really handy for grabbing videos from right across all of the social media platforms. And don't forget the manual tip. This is a little screen capture of the effect of using the full stop button to move forward a single frame in YouTube and the comma to move back a single frame. Now, the reason why this is important is because moving a video back and forwards frame by frame allows you to at least ensure that you are capturing detail. You focus on the video, look at it really closely. Now, let's have another go. So here's a little street scene that I've grabbed from a fantastic video of simply drives through a city, and it's in 4K. Now, this is an example of the sort of thing that you may be able to use to geolocate content. Now, location videos are generally a goldmine of information, especially if the shooter allows for lots of urban scenery in the frames. And if there's a pan, even better. I can't stress how vital a first step this skill is in being a successful investigator. In other words, this is using your best assets as a journalist, your curiosity, your really sharp eyes. But let's show you a few details that you could look out for that, believe it or not, you can either Google or find in databases. So for instance, if you have a look at your screen now, things like the various public utility signs you can see there. You can see architectural details, stuff like signs. That bus obviously is a pretty, that truck in front of us is a pretty good example of the sort of thing that you can use to geolocate something down to a local business. It has local URLs. The architectural details can also be searched. I'm going to show you a tool that will allow you to do that. You've got things like a bank logo up there and a big spire in the distance. Now we're going to return to that image a little later on because I want to show you a cool little tool to let you know how this can work. But what did you see? Did you see street patterns, architectural details, street signs, shop fronts, all of those sorts of things? Now keep all of that in mind, and now we're going to have a look at some tools. The Invid tool suite is kind of like a multi-tool. It does lots of things, and as you can see on screen there's a few tools contained in the one. Now it's a Chrome extension. It's also a page which you can use as a standalone sort of page, but what it allows you to do is, for instance, and you can see there, that's a screen grab of me activating it on a YouTube video, but it works with other formats. You simply open the assistant for a current page, which contains a video. And then what you get is, for instance, and this is looking at the video analysis tab, we're getting there a lot of really useful metadata about the channel that's distributing that video, but then also a whole bunch of thumbnails that give you an idea of where we're at over there. And look, while you're looking at that, you can see there that you can actually also do reverse searches for Google, Yandex, TinEye, and Twitter, which is really useful because you can see where a video has been spread and who has been spreading it. Now, very quickly, I'm going to ask my friends out there to let me know a bit of a time check so I know how long I've got to go, because I've lost track, because I'm so excited about showing you all of this really cool stuff. Now, here is a fantastic little hack. Very recently, Google incorporated Lens into the Chrome browser. And what is really amazing about this is that this means that you can now search within image searches. So what you can see is there on screen is, for instance, me activating a Google Lens search right inside a search result. And in turn, that then gives me a result of, for instance, additional searches I can do. I can search for an image source. It's really, really an incredibly useful tool. And all you do is simply activate it by right-clicking over any image that you want to search. Now, to round off the tool suite, this is one incredible and really useful tool. This is RevEye. Now, just search for it by using the terms that you see on screen there. And it is a Chrome extension. Once you have got it installed, all you do is right-click over any image that you want to investigate. Now, the useful thing with RevEye is that it takes advantage of 4 other search engines. It uses Google. It uses Bing. Bing has special powers of its own and complements Google's image search results. But it also uses Yandex. Now, Yandex is a Russian search engine which uses artificial intelligence to essentially match images to other images. It also uses a tool called TinEye, and TinEye allows you to match your image against other copyrighted images. Very useful tool, and one of 3 incredibly powerful tools that you've now got at your disposal. And look, this is a really good point for me to introduce another idea, that this time a year ago, really there were 2 really good tools. Now there's 3 with the introduction of Lens. So that should tell you that there's all sorts of things, all sorts of evolution going on. So always keep track of what you can see in this space. Look, we're going to just quickly have a look at how to use social media timestamps to get an idea of where when a timestamp was a social media post was made. Look, on Twitter, you can see a tooltip which will come up when you mouse over the date. Facebook is very similar. YouTube is in Pacific time. So what you have to do is use a third-party tool. And usually you can activate it using Invid. Instagram it takes a little bit more, and it requires you to right-click and inspect content, and you'll see the time displayed as UTC time, which again requires a conversion. TikTok, you'll have to view the page source and search for create time. So again, keep that in mind in terms of being able to detect that. It is very important to be able to gauge when a social media post was made, because again, it can tell you whether that was made before or after an event it's trying to hoax. And look, keep track of the Unix timestamp converter. It is very, very useful. It will allow you quite a bit of detail in again, it can extract timestamps from your Unix-based time videos. Look, I'm going to now just tell you all about a pretty useful little tool. Sorry, I just have to make a little jump. There we are. Look, I have to, apologies, sorry about my captioner. I'm just going in and out of sequence. But look, I just want to quickly touch on Google Maps. Google Maps is a key verification tool. It's really important that in an emergency disaster situation, there will be emergency disaster alerts. So if you're seeing fake content around an emergency, please be aware. It's a really good tool for you to keep an eye on to look at verified real content. And of course, you have Street View Timeline. Now, what's really important about Street View Timeline is that it allows you to check through all of the different times that the Street View car has been down a street. Now, look at this image really carefully. You can see it's actually that scene, which is, of course, in the City of London, which we were looking at before. But look, the building had that cladding covering it. Now, the really annoying thing about that would be, of course, normally, that you wouldn't be able to identify that extremely distinctive building. But using Timeline, we can actually navigate back to a time before that cladding was on the building. And there you can see it in the sort of center left of the picture right there. So you can see that we have, you can actually look at that as a way to check that. So look, let me just if, and I do have a challenge question, of course, which I do have to ask you. And if I could get that just popped into our chat there, that would be fantastic, because I've just lost that little spot there. While I'm just doing that, I'm just going to start talking to you about Instant Data Scraper. Now, Instant Data Scraper is essentially a data scraping tool. Now, this is something that you might be sort of thinking, well, why are we actually looking at this in the context of something like this challenge? And look, while I am actually just in the process of doing that, you can just do a little search for Instant Data Scraper. But look, here is the second of the two challenge questions. What powerful image search tool comes with your Chrome browser? Now remember, today you've seen 3 different types of image tools. You've seen one which is a whole suite of tools, which is a Chrome extension. You've seen one which uses a handful of really useful search engines, which is also a Chrome extension, but one which comes bundled with your Chrome browser. Now, were you paying attention? Hopefully you were, and you'll know which one that was. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you about this little tool. This is Instant Data Scraper, and what it allows you to do is scrape tables and applications of those. So what you can do is simply feed it, for instance, onto something like this application of advanced search operators to run a search for topics that often attract false or misinforming content. I search for native video because this looks for video uploaded or created to the social network I'm searching and played in feed, as opposed to links to other sites. Then you simply run it, set your scroll to minimum delay of 5 and max to 20, and set it to infinite scroll, which accounts for Twitter's load. And what you can harvest is lists of accounts that share suspect content. It's a really fantastic way to learn and to accumulate lists of suspect sharers. Now, finally, here's a bit of a recap. What are your key tools? Well, what are the types of misinfo? Remember those. Remember your social media account checklist. Think about reverse image search and what method you'll use, your video analysis tools, social media timestamps, which will tell you who shared what first, and always remember to keep lists of suspect accounts. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic Google News Initiative Verification Challenge. It's over to you now, and I'm sure you'll be brilliant.
Thank you so much, Miguel, for that amazing presentation. So many pro tips in there. I hope everyone was scribbling furiously as you were talking. It was like a mini masterclass in verification. So we appreciate you being so generous with your tips tonight. The slide is titled Question and Answer Time, Q&A time, and that's your cue to put your questions for Miguel into the chat, and he'll be happy to answer a few of those before we log off for the night. But to get the ball rolling, Miguel, if you don't mind, can I just ask you about your experience of training people in verification? I know you train journalists all the time in these skills. What sort of impact does that bit of know-how and confidence have on the work they're able to produce?
Look, it's I'm always going back to old lessons, but practice makes perfect, and the training, will boost your confidence in trusting your own judgment about what you're seeing online, and that's crucial. And look, I always put in brackets, as long as you practice them. But look, the practice is the fun part. They don't replace your real human journalist skills, and that's what I like about this area. They actually extend them into the digital realm. So for me, the value is, firstly, I like learning and teaching this stuff because it's fun, and I think people like learning it because it's fun. Secondly, applying it over time isn't a chore, and also as you do it, you sort of realize that actually I'm using skills I already have. I'm using my my curiosity. I'm investigating. I've got keen eyes. I listen out for people. These are all skills journalists have. It just extends them into the digital realm. But the crucial thing, I feel, is, learn to enjoy them, and that way you sort of it almost makes the learning of this so much more fun. And then the other thing is, it becomes second nature to use them. That then boosts your confidence, and that's the crucial
So
thing. And there's always
practice
about
makes
content.
perfect, huh?
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's
practice makes perfect.
and hopefully the
We've got
practice is fun.
Yes, yeah. And you get plenty of that in the verification challenge in the next phase.
Exactly.
So we'd encourage you to apply those skills in that forum in a month's time or thereabouts. But we've got a question from someone online this evening, Miguel, for you. They're wondering if you ever struggle with information overload when you're verifying things. They're referencing the idea that Google can give you thousands of returns on a search, for example. So if you could shed some light on that, that'd be great.
Yep. I think with every investigation, you should always make sure that you're either using something like Google's advanced search page or using Google search operators. Now, I know that's a different training session, which you can contact the Google News Initiative about, or you can do online training, or you can simply search for Google search operators. The reason why it's really good to use tools like that on one end when you're looking for stuff is because you know what you want to find. So why don't you make the search engine work for you the way you know it should? Because, journalists are going out there to pursue stories, and they know that there are details that they want to find. And that doesn't matter whether you're a 15-year-old journalist. I really hope there are some in this, all the way through to, an experienced one. But so you don't need to have information overload when you can control your search. So start with the Google Advanced Search page is the best tool there is. And if you really like that stuff, use Google search operators. On the other hand, organize your investigation using a digital tool set like either Google Keep or Citable, as I showed you, because that way you trap and control the stuff that you've verified, because you're the smart one.
Right.
And the other thing is, with social media, use tools like TweetDeck, CrowdTangle, or Redditor to also listify and control what's there, because the digital realm is just another round. And like every other round in the physical realm, you might have a little contacts list of people that you talk to, who you trust, who tell the truth. Well, it's the same thing online. And that's where I really encourage people to make lots of lists, but also just, control how they search.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for that tip as well. Just got one eye on the clock, and I think we've pretty much exhausted our time allocation for this evening, Miguel. But thank you so much for being so generous with your knowledge tonight. We appreciate so much. And just a reminder to everyone on the call that this speaker series continues next Tuesday night. And the following Tuesday night, we have Sushi Das from RMIT Fact Check and Esther Chan, formerly from First Draft, joining us to talk through their fact-checking pro tips. And if you join and you answer those questions that the presenters pitch to you throughout their presentations, you've got the chance to win points that will give you a head start in the Real Deal Verification Challenge. So very worthwhile. It's not just about the knowledge, it's also about giving you a head start in the challenge. So yes, once again, Miguel, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep. Good luck, everyone.